Good day, my good people. This is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show where we talk about real life real estate situations, where we bring you real life real estate solutions. I'm your host, Glenn Glasper, affectionately known as Mr. Dollar Out of a Dime. And I have a very interesting topic that I want to talk about today. And I'm going to get right into it right after this. All right, folks, how you doing? Thank y'all for joining me. Thank you for joining me today. Again, this is the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show where we talk about real life real estate situations, where we bring you real life real estate solutions. I'm your host, Glenn Glasper, affectionately known as Mr. Dollar Out of a Dime. And today I want to talk about gentrification. I'd like to call it the miseducation of gentrification and buying back the block. Right. So we've heard this term, or we've heard this phrase, buying back the block for quite some time now. I would like to say at least maybe 4-5 years, if I'm not mistaken. And buying back the block has become I guess, a household phrase, if you will, where people recognize that buying back the block means, I guess, buying back your neighborhood, or at least some people believe that, or at least some people understand that. And many people look at, well, first of all, let's talk about gentrification. I like to, again, the miseducation of gentrification. Most people look at gentrification as a attack of some sort on the lower income or lower or underserved communities, right? And oftentimes what I look at, how I look at that is, I don't consider it an attack. And of course, I welcome your comments. I welcome anything that you guys would like to share. Uh, I don't consider it an attack. I consider it the times changing. And oftentimes, unfortunately, most people or many people don't want to change with the times. And that brings about a difference of how people look at things. And I always say, the phrase that I always use if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will soon change. And what does that mean? Well, first of all, what does that mean as it relates to gentrification and buying back the block? Gentrification is commonly known to some people as when people come in and buy up neighborhoods and they restore the neighborhood to a better condition than it currently is. And some people look at that as something that is not favorable to the people that are in the community, or not favorable to the people who've lived there for some time. Because what happens? You have new properties or refurbished properties or different things. You have different stores and new things coming into the neighborhood. Excuse me. You have new things coming into the neighborhood. And what that means for some people is now they're not going to be able to afford to live there because prices, of course, go up on everything. I mean, inflation is what it is, right? Prices have gone up. And now in this neighborhood, you have a new store, you have a new, some people say if Starbucks, Home Depot, Walmart, well, actually Starbucks, Home Depot, or what is the name of the stores I'm trying to think of? I knew I would draw a blank for this one. Or the Whole Food stores, right? When those start coming into the neighborhoods, you know that your neighborhood is being gentrified. And it's interesting that we look at things that way and look at it as an assault on our neighborhoods as opposed to something that is beneficial or better for the neighborhood, right? I was reading a post that someone put up the other day, and they said that uh, how did it go? That gentrification is causing people to have to move out of their neighborhoods, and people that complain about gentrification are the people who are, will use the phrase less fortunate by financial means. Um, and the response to that post, someone said, why do they want to keep us poor? And I guess what that meant is, why do the people who live in these neighborhoods want to keep us poor? Or why do they complain about things changing in these neighborhoods? Because if the neighborhood doesn't change, it in essence keeps us poor. Because, let's be real, people that invest in real estate do that to make money. They invest in real estate to make money. And then you have people that come to the neighborhoods, they buy up the houses, they fix them up, and now they sell them at a higher price. Now, if grandma or big mama or auntie and them live in this neighborhood and they live, relatively near where the new houses are that have been fixed up, now the values have increased in the neighborhood. Now that raises the taxes on big mama's house or auntie whomever's house, right? So the taxes have been raised. So now Big Mama is no longer able to afford to live in the neighborhood because her taxes have increased, right? Or Auntie whomever has, same situation. Taxes have increased. Now it's going to cost more for them to live in the neighborhood, right? That's one way of looking at it. That's one way of looking at it. Another way I see it is, I see it as an opportunity. Right now, the property values have increased. Depending on what's owed on the house, there's more equity in the house, right? But let's start from the beginning of this. And I say the beginning of this is because I said gentrification, or the miseducation of gentrification. I think the education is what's missing in these types of situations, right? People believe that it's an assault because now they can no longer afford to live there, which, okay, it depends on how you look at it again. If you look at it that way, then that's probably how you're going to see it. But if you look at it in a way where it creates an opportunity, then it doesn't seem like such an assault of sorts. And how I say that, why I say that is, if you educate the people in these communities, if there's financial education, right? That's going to be the basis for a lot of these situations. If you have some financial education, some financial understanding of the benefits that you can have as a result of these now new people coming into the neighborhoods, quote unquote, buying up the block, then it wouldn't look like such an assault. It would look like more of an opportunity if the education was there. For example, if, we'll say grandma's house was previously worth $100,000, and there's a new house built in the neighborhood that's, now costs $350,000, right? Now, of course, that doesn't increase grandma's house to $350,000, but it does increase it a little bit because the values around her are gone up. So subsequently, her value will eventually go up, but not to the tune of $200,000. Some people get those values from Zillow. um, but the value will go up, right? Even if it's 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000, the value will go up because of what's happening around her. Now, that's also going to depend the condition of grandma's house. If grandma's house is in bad condition, depending on the condition of it, it may or may not go up that much, right? But if grandma's house is in not so bad condition, it might go up a little. Okay. Now, here's the thing with that. If grandma or whomever I keep referencing grandma because that's where usually people look at the assault happens, on the older or the elderly, or even some of the younger people who don't have the financial education or financial literacy. If the value goes up, or when the value goes up, if you look at what first is your credit intact, right? Most unfortunately, many people in the, we'll call, underserved neighborhoods are not in tune with their credit situation, or why their credit situation should be better. Many people that are not educated on credit automatically think that their credit isn't good, right? Because they've gone to the local car dealer. The local car dealer has turned them down. Um, they've tried to apply for a credit card, and the credit card that they wanted didn't get approved. So there are several different scenarios whereby they believe that their credit isn't in the best condition. Where if they understood how to build credit or restore their credit that was damaged previously, then that would be less of a barrier to them being able to take advantage of the gentrification in the neighborhood. All right. For example, we'll say there's a 500 credit score, right? It's because they haven't paid, doctor bills. There's some collections. There's some, whatever the situation is there. They may have gotten a credit card. They run up the limit. Now, and all of these are factors on their credit that now cause them not to be able to take advantage of the equity that's in their house, right? They probably had a car repossession, whatever the case may be. Now, what's misunderstood about that situation is those things can be repaired. If you get your credit in order, first of all, if there is, of course, you have to have some, want to be in a position to have a stream of income, of course, if you're working or whatever the case may be, some type of stream of income should be coming into your household or wherever, whatever the case may be. You want to have some stream of income, if not more than one stream of income, right? And now, let's reel it back to the more commonly understood blue collar areas, right? There's some blue collar areas that, traditionally they understand that they'll go to work, get their paycheck every week or every 2 weeks. And what they're doing with that paycheck can determine whether or not they're going to be able to take advantage of the gentrification situation, right? We have, it's been historically known for some time now that many people are living from paycheck to paycheck. And what I have come to understand is that it's not always an income problem. It's a management problem, right? Because in certain situations, it's unfortunate that they're not living within their means. And if they're not living within their means, then that means that the management of the funds that they're making are not being managed properly. That's first thing you got to get in check. What is it that you have that is not necessary that you're paying on that could be reduced to reduce your costs, right? For example, do you have that $200 cable package? Do you have all of the streaming platforms? All of those things. You can reduce your costs by getting rid of some of those things, right? If you know what I know, get a fire stick. You don't have to have all those things. But you can reduce your cost by getting rid of some of those many different those extra expenditures, right? Reduce your cost that way, right? Do you have the latest and greatest iPhone? Right? Is that iPhone costing you an additional 30, 40 bucks a month because you're financing it over however long it takes for you to finance it with whatever cellular service you have, right? Can you trade that phone in, use one of the older phones that you have to reduce your cost in that way, right? Are you doing what you can to reduce your costs so that you can use those additional funds to turn them into potential investments, right? Turn those additional funds into potential investments. Reduce your costs so that you have some additional or some non-discretionary funds that you can use to increase your uh, profitability down the road. Now, these, of course, would be, if you're accustomed to getting or having certain things, these would be uncomfortable changes to a degree. But if you're wanting to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming into your neighborhoods, where they're buying your block, you should prepare yourself for those opportunities. Now, what's happening? We got inflation that's happening. Of course, groceries and gas and all these other things have gone up, right? Where if you're making a certain amount of money, where you were accustomed to spending a certain amount of money on certain things, on groceries and gas and rent and all these other things, if either you A, increase your income or decrease your outgo. I should say, I'll use the word outgo. Decrease the amount of money that's going out, or redirect the money that's going out to something that you can build on, right? Whatever it is that you can, choose to, you know, do some online sales or internet marketing or whatever the case may be. Put your funding in something that will help you increase your income as opposed to spending money on things that are really liabilities. Spend money in areas that will increase your assets. Get more educated, financially educated, understanding your credit and increasing your income. These are the things, these are the tools that will help most people take advantage of the opportunities of gentrification, right? And that's just basically the tip of understanding the financial literacy or having some financial education or some financial knowledge about how these things work. Now, when those situations happen where gentrification is happening in your neighborhood, your credit is better. You now can get access to additional funding through creating a business and getting business funding and doing all these additional things, getting funding to help you take advantage of the properties that are increasing in value. If you own a property in that neighborhood, use some of that equity in that house to now invest in taking advantage of the opportunity of the other properties in the neighborhood that need to be fixed up. Now you're participating in gentrifying your own neighborhood and in a way, in the de facto way, you're participating and that helps you increase your income. For example, we'll say if you're not managing your funding properly and you get your funds and your finances and things in order where you're managing them properly, you've gotten your credit in order. Now you can take advantage of the equity that's in the house that you live in, refinance, pull some cash out, now go buy the house down the street that's going to be sold anyway, right? Some people, everyone's not just selling to give away their house. Some people are selling for other reasons. Some people are selling because there's a death in the family. Some people are selling because they're moving out of state. Some people are selling for many people are selling for many different reasons. Now you position yourself to take advantage of those opportunities that are happening in the neighborhood, right? You have the funding now. Buy that house, fix it up, and don't always sell it. Don't always sell it. You can create, or if you sell it on seller financing. Well, that creates an additional stream of income for you and gets you a significant down payment. That's in another class. But you position yourself to take advantage of some additional cash flow because you've done the things or you've taken the steps that you need to position yourself. These things don't happen overnight, but if you understand how to position yourself and take advantage of the things that happen, it wouldn't seem like such an assault that someone is gentrifying the neighborhood or buying back your block. And oftentimes I've seen it or I've heard it in many cases where the people that are complaining that this is happening in their neighborhoods don't really own anything in their neighborhood. Okay, let me say that again. I've seen it where people complain about the neighborhoods increasing in value or the rent increasing because they did not own anything in the neighborhood. That's the first step to getting to not feeling victimized by someone gentrifying the neighborhood, right? Getting your finances in order so you can take advantage of the buying back the block. I had a conversation with some people earlier this year about how to take advantage of buying back the block. And it's all about the education, the understanding. There are ways that you could potentially purchase some of those properties without having to have good credit or without having to have the money, right? It makes it easier if you have those things, but there are ways that you could potentially position yourself to buy those properties that are in your neighborhood that are going to be sold anyway. You could position yourself to buy those properties even if you don't have credit, even if you don't have money, right? Somebody would ask why, how? First of all, you got to understand the process of how it works. You could buy on what's commonly known as seller financing. And seller financing can be a couple of different ways: lease option, or lease purchase, or subject to, or some people are familiar with land contracts, right? Many of these different ways are ways that you can buy on seller financing, right? So, for example, the person down the street, I'll say down the street because it's still in the neighborhood, has an issue where they're moving out of state, right? Have little to no equity in their house, so it makes it hard for them to be able to sell, especially if they're trying to list with an agent, because there's no room for agent fees and closing costs and all these other things that they would potentially have to pay. But they have to move anyway, right? Better opportunity, moving with an elderly parent, whatever the case may be. They're moving to another state or another area, but they still have this property that they have to somehow get rid of, and they don't want to ruin their credit by letting it go into foreclosure or whatever may happen. They don't want to ruin their situation, right? Or they've had a job loss and they got to move. Whatever the case may be, there's an opportunity where if you look at that property and it's not in bad condition, or even if it's in not so great condition, we won't say terrible condition, but not so great condition, you can position yourself to take over the payments on that house, right? Well, Glenn, I don't have the money to buy my house. How can I take over the payments on someone else's house? Very good question. You put yourself in a position to be responsible for the payments on that house and position another person that would want to buy that house or a house in that area and have them make the payments. But you are the responsible party that is in control of that property now. So now you've taken the problem property off someone else's hands who was in a situation. You position yourself now to be the responsible party to make sure the payments are being made, but then you put someone else in position to pay you, and you pay the mortgage. So you can increase the monthly payment for that person to move in and start making payments, and maybe even get them to do the repairs if there's repairs needed to be done. So this is a way that you can create an opportunity for yourself with a property that's in a troubled situation, right? It happens every day. Right. So you can position yourself to now take over those payments and now create some cash flow for yourself. Even though you did not have great credit, even though you may not have had money, right? But you got to understand how that process works. Right. So these are ways that if you understand these processes, that you could potentially put yourself in position to take advantage of the gentrifying of your neighborhood, because it's going to get gentrified anyway. I mean, depending on where you are, the neighborhood is going to change. And it's going to change for the better, hopefully, with increasing the values, because most cities understand that the tax revenue is what helps them run, and increasing the values helps increase the tax revenue. Increasing the tax revenue helps increase the civic, jobs that are the civic jobs that are in the area. You have your police officers, your firemen, and things like that, right? You have more police officers, you have less crime, which keeps your property value from decreasing, right? You can have more police officers, you have less crime, you have, better positioned fire stations, or, fire chief, better fire people, I'll say, or more people that are in position to or for people to put people in position that will make the right decisions for the neighborhoods, right? You have a bigger voter base, you have a bigger and better voter base, you have better people to position themselves in the offices that need to be held to maintain the things that need to come into the community. Your schools, your the we'll even say the sanitation department, right? The people who will be in position to clean up the streets, right? So all of these things are all of these things happen as a result of the taxes that are paid in the cities or the counties or whatever the case may be. And all of these things come from, many cases, the property taxes. And if the increase in property taxes helps make the neighborhoods better, why would someone not want to have that happen? Of course, yeah, we all want to avoid paying taxes as much as possible. But if it's for the betterment of what we have, then why wouldn't you want to do it? Right? I heard Jim Rohn said this way. He said, um, "Why wouldn't you want to pay the goose that lays the golden egg?" And he said, "The goose eats too much." And he said, "That's probably probably true. We all eat too much, but the goose that you're paying is laying the golden egg of making the neighborhoods better." Right? So why wouldn't someone want to participate in a situation like that? And as it relates to gentrification, again, these things are going to happen in most cases anyway. But if you are properly prepared, which is financially educated on how to take advantage of these things that come into the neighborhood, it wouldn't seem like such a victimized situation, I should say. And I just realized I had, okay, all right, okay. Wanted to make sure I had, my teammate is telling me I need to do something different. But no, that's the way that you put yourself in position where you're not playing the victim of sorts, and how many of these things come together, right? Um, and I've seen so many different things. I watched so many different ways that people look at how gentrification is a bad thing. Uh, I'm interested in understanding why people would think gentrification is a bad thing. I mean, I know what I've heard in many cases. They said because the opportunities for people that are living in these neighborhoods gets decreased, and I beg to differ because if you look at how many opportunities are created when these situations happen. I mean, if you look at values increasing brings more businesses into the neighborhood. You have less crime, you bring more businesses into the neighborhood. More businesses come into the neighborhood now means there are more opportunities for people locally in those neighborhoods. So why wouldn't people want to have better situations happening in their current neighborhoods? And so those are the things that I'm curious to know. And if anyone that's watching has a comment or a question about any of those things, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are as it relates to gentrification and buying back the block. Yeah, someone sent me something the other day that Mike Epps is having a new show come out called Buy Back the Block. Mike Epps and his wife, I think they're buying properties in their neighborhoods and things like that. And there were many comments against the whole idea of gentrifying the neighborhood, even though it's Mike Epps, right? Meaning that, let's say what it is. Keep it real. Like people were saying that at least he's a black man in black neighborhoods buying houses. But other people have said, well, even though he's a black man, he's going to sell to the other man. And I'm like, well, what difference does that make, right? Um, because if you were properly educated and had the proper knowledge about finances and things like that, then it wouldn't be that big of a deal, right? And many times, situations like this are a result of lack of education. And what I would want to have people understand is the best way to get involved from the very beginning, as I mentioned, is start with repairing your credit. If that's an area where you're not as strong, I'd say start with repairing your credit. Start with that in and of itself can help with increasing your finances, right? Work on your credit. What that would help you do is get in position to get business credit, right? But you have to first look at ways to decrease if you're limited on your income right now. If you're limited on your income right now, look at ways to decrease or lower your overhead, lower the things that you have going out, right? Now, and that happens. Now, let me just be real. That happens on many different levels. Some people say, if you can afford it, why not pay for it? Now, affording it and spending your money responsibly are kind of two different things in how I look at it, right? I decreased a lot of my overhead in my house. I can afford, afford relatively, from a relative perspective. A $200 cable bill is not more than I can pay. But if I don't have to pay $200, why would I? Right? If I save and I've cut my cable in half, my cable cost in half, right? If I'm paying $100 less every month, that's $1,200 a month. Where could I potentially invest 1,200? And I'm sorry, $1,200 a year. Forgive me. Where could I potentially invest that $1,200 and get a significant return? Whereby, if I choose to increase my cable a year or two later, I don't see me doing that, but if I chose to do that, that investment that I made by reducing those costs initially would cover the cost of increasing the cable, if you get what I mean, right? So I take that $1,200, I turn that $1,200 into $2,400. So the following year, that investment pays for my cable, if that's something that I wanted to invest in. But TV is not that important to me, so that wouldn't be the thing that I would invest in. But if you look at ways to decrease your costs in any way you can, whatever amount you can, look at ways to take those decrease in cost and invest them in other ways to increase your income, right? Whether it's buying a new book, a new book may cost you $10, $20, right? If you get rid of your, I won't be a hypocrite and say get rid of your Netflix because I have Netflix, but my cellular company pays for my Netflix, so I don't pay Netflix technically because the cellular company that I'm with pays for Netflix. But if you're not in that situation, find a way to decrease the cost for your Netflix, right? By having your cellular company. Many of the cellular companies now are paying for Netflix for you to be you know, whatever plan they have. Um, get rid of the additional streaming, all of the additional streaming that you have, Hulu and all these other, what's Pluto and all these additional costs where you may not use those as much as you would. The Disney Channel and all these other things. Get yourself a Fire Stick. If you know. Get a Fire Stick. You will have to pay for all those additional streaming services. But look at ways to decrease your costs. Right? Do you have the highest cellular plan? I mean, there are many different cellular plans that are offering the same thing. Uh, people don't want to get on the, I don't know, what is it, Cricket Wireless? I don't know what Cricket Wireless is. Uh, Cricket Wireless or many of these other wireless providers are using the same networks as the bigger providers, right? They're leasing the same satellite or the same towers from the bigger providers, and they're giving it to you at a lower cost, right? So why wouldn't, if you had an older cell phone, go to a lesser cost provider to decrease your costs for whatever amount of time it would take you to decrease those costs, right? If it's 6 months, if it's a year, and I mean, if you're with some of the carriers nowadays, they don't require you to have a contract. So you can get out of that monthly payment or whatever the case may be and go to a lower cost cellular provider, right? Save you 50 bucks, 100 bucks a month, whatever the case may be, right? Look at ways to decrease your expenses so that you can increase your assets. That positions you to be in the number of people that will take advantage of gentrification and buying back the block. Now, let's talk about what's happening in the real estate world or the world of interest rates and things like that and how it relates to any of this. Interest rates have gone up. Interest rates have gone up quite a bit. However, if you are buying a property that someone else is going to pay for and they're going to cover the cost, what does it matter? Okay, because as interest rates have gone up, rents have gone up. So your profit margin can still be relatively the same. So I hear a lot of people saying, I'm going to wait until the market crashes. Good luck with that. um, And this is all relative to the gentrification situation because those people who are saying they're going to wait till the market crashes are not well enough educated on how the market works. You may be in a position to buy now, but you're waiting till the prices of properties go down before you buy, which seems like a good strategy, right? Relatively, it seems like a good strategy. You're waiting for that $500,000 property to go down to 400,000. It's not going to go down to any more than that. It's not going to go down that much more significantly than that. We're not having a crash like we had back in 2008. Now, that $500,000 property is now $400,000, only because maybe it's been on the market for more than the number of days that the person was wanting to sell it for. Right, so it's been on the day market for 30 days or 45 days, and they were expecting to sell it for $500,000 for the first 2 days, and that's not happening the way it was. So they start decreasing the price, and then it sells. And what happens is in the neighborhood, because that property sold, it decreases the values of the properties around it because the properties are now the numbers are going down. Now, if you have had your house for any number of years, then your property value has increased significantly over the last 2 years. So even though it once was, when you first bought it, it was probably a $300,000 property. Then the property sold and increased the value to a $500,000 property. But now properties are selling at lower prices, so it's now down to a $400,000 property. What does that mean? You still have $100,000 of equity in your house, right? And that's how things are happening. Like people were, I mean, I saw a couple different posts where people were talking about how $1 million plus property is now down to, well, we'll say I think it was 1.5 or 1.4 or something like that. But now it's down to 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.2 or 1.1, which is significant for that type of property. That's $300,000 less than what it originally was hoping to sell for. Now, for the person in that position that was hoping to make that kind of money, yeah, it's probably not so great for them because now they're going to make a little bit less, depending on what the outstanding mortgage is. However, that's happening and though at those price points because there's not many buyers that are in the market now for that price point. But you still have, when you're buying $1 million plus property, depending on where it is, like, New York, California, $1 million plus property, that's, your regular 3,000 square foot house probably, or maybe less, 2,000 or 1,500 square foot. So that's a regular property, for someone, for a family, a family of two or three. Now, in Georgia, $1 million plus property, that's a significant size house. We're talking, depending on where it is, 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 square feet, depending on where it is. That's a significant size property. Now, can someone buy a $500,000 property that's the same size as that $1 million property in a different area, right? I mean, let's keep it 100. They can probably buy a property half this or probably the same size for half the price. So that $1 million buying market or buying pool is not as, we'll say, it's not as high as it was before. So now they're probably going to the $500,000 or $400,000 price range, right? Many of them are wise in doing that. And if they're doing that, there are still people who are in the affordable housing price range. I use my air quotes. Affordable housing is now in the range of $300,000 to $350,000. That's considered affordable in some areas of the country. Um, so depending on the amount of house that you were looking to buy before, you might not be able to buy that amount of house right now because of interest rates. But that doesn't mean that you can't buy a house because there are lenders that are still lending. We're going to have a conversation about the Bank of America loans one of these days. We'll do a show. I had someone that's supposed to come on and have a conversation about that. But even in those types of scenarios where the prices, people are still buying. Houses are on the market a little bit longer because the buying pools have decreased. And they've decreased, A, because of interest rates, yes. B, because of fear. People are afraid if they buy that $300,000 house today, it's only going to be worth $200,000 tomorrow. That's not going to happen for a couple of years. If it happens. If it happens. And I stand by that. If anybody has any, comments about that, I'd be open to have that conversation. But I don't see property values significantly decreasing the way they did back in 2008. Yes, the buying has cooled off, or is even still cooling off, because we're still in the seller's market, because inventory is still low in many areas of the country. Inventory being low means there are still more buyers in the market than there are sellers, right? Because you still have builders that are building in certain areas, right? So you're still having people trying to keep up with the inventory demand. So, crash, I don't see it happening as long as there is a balance, because I see there being a balance where properties are going to go back to the 30 days on the market that was once common. 7% interest rates were once common, right? So these things where people are in an uproar about were once common types of things. Now, because we've gotten comfortable with the 3% interest rate and one day on the market being common for a couple of years or a year or so, people have gotten comfortable. And hopefully many people took advantage of those opportunities, but there's still going to be many opportunities to come. And with interest rates increasing, that's going to cause different things to happen in the market. How does this all tie into gentrification? Right? There are some people who understand, who will understand, if they don't, will understand that they can still buy real estate. They can still buy houses. And they're going to buy in the areas where the values aren't that much higher. And when they buy in those areas where the values aren't that much higher, guess what? They're going to do what they can to increase those values. They're going to buy the house down the street from you or around the corner from you. They're going to fix it up to increase that value, and they're going to sell it, right? Even though the property values in the neighborhoods may have gone down some, if there are still houses that need repairs, they're just going to buy those houses that need repairs at a lower price. And they're going to fix them up and they're going to sell them at a slightly higher price, which still is going to increase the values of the properties in the neighborhood, which still is going to increase the value of your property, whether or not you fix it up. Now, it's not going to increase it significantly if you don't fix it up, but it's going to increase the value. What will you do with the equity increase that you will have available in the house, in the neighborhood? Will you be in position to take advantage of that? Right? There are going to be people who, unfortunately, are not able to afford the increase in interest rates. There are going to be people who will not be able to afford the increase in the taxes. Will you be in position to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that will be created as a result of these things happening anyway? Right? So the thing that I would really have people look at in the way of gentrification is truly educate yourself about what happens in those scenarios. Truly educate yourself on how you can position yourself to not be a victim, but a victor in the scenario of quote unquote gentrification. It's not a terrible thing if you're in position to take advantage of it. It's only a terrible thing if you look at it that way because you haven't positioned yourself to take advantage of it. And that's really all I have for today. And I thank you all for watching today. I thank you all for joining me. I hope this makes sense to those of you who are joining. If you have any questions, of course, please feel free to send me an inbox message or DM me, address anything that you have as it relates to this topic or any topic as it relates to real estate, and help you understand, if you're not in position, how you can position yourself to take advantage of the thing that we understand as gentrification, and position yourself to be one of those people to buy back the block. And I want to say this as well. It's not always necessary that you do it on your own. If you partner with someone else, you can position yourself to be in a group of people that buy back the block, right? You know, one can do it, but 10 could do it much easier, right? So if you look at how you can position yourself to, talk to Auntie May May or cousin June June, whomever, on how you can position yourselves to take advantage of those opportunities, if you can work together to do it. And if you need some help or guidance on how to put that together, I'm open to have that conversation about how I can help you position yourself to take advantage of those opportunities so that you don't miss out on those things. And it doesn't require you to be all involved in it. Of course, you want to learn how the process works. But if you want to partner with me or partner with anybody that I may recommend you to, then certainly reach out to me and I can point you in the direction that you need to go into to learn how you can take advantage of those opportunities. So, thank you all for watching. Thank you for joining me today. Oh, one last thing. Don't forget to check me out tonight. I'll be hosting the Bible study for my church at Stronghold this evening, where we're going to talk some more about these things: how to build business credit, how to position yourself to get your finances in order, and how to do the things that you should be doing to position yourself to take advantage of any opportunity as it relates to business, real estate, finance, whatever the case may be, and how do you can really get things done just from starting. You don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great. So this has been the Real Life Real Estate Investing Show, where we talk about real life real estate situations, where we review real life real estate solutions. And again, I'm your host, Glenn Glasper, affectionately known as Mr. Dollar of a Dime. I thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you this evening if you'll join me. And I'll see you next week.